Following Jesus is a lifetime's adventure. It's one of those things that's exciting, but also when it comes to any adventure, you need to know what you're getting into. There's a lot of expectations with adventures. Like if you're going to go down the River Nile, you need to know that there's going to be crocodiles in the Nile, all right? Because that's going to determine whether you're going to go for a swim or not. If you are going to go climbing in the Rocky Mountains and you don't have the right walking gear, you need to know that's going to put you in danger. And also when it comes to following Jesus, when it comes to following him and being his disciple, Jesus tells us to count the cost. What is he saying? Let me read the Bible passage to you. It's found in Luke 14:25-35. And it says this, that great crowds had come round to hear Jesus speak, which is always the case. And Jesus started talking to this huge crowd and he said this, if anyone wants to come to me and does not hate his own father and mother, wife and children, brother and sister, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. So what is Jesus saying here? Is he saying that it's not a free thing to come and follow him? Well, no, because if you want to start any relationship, you go in knowing what it's going to cost you. I can remember when I met my wife. Right? And anytime you meet somebody that you think is absolutely stunningly gorgeous and you take a shine to them, you know that that's not going to come free. You are going to have to put effort in. You are going to have to make sure that you invest because the reward for that investment is huge. And I can remember it cost me a lot of money to woo my wife. It cost me a lot of time to woo my wife and even cost me some pain and humility to woo my wife. And it's the same when you're in a relationship with God. Your priorities are all going to shift. And Jesus is talking about that because he says some things in there like hate. Now that's a strong word because I'll be honest with you. I don't want to hate my mum and dad. I don't want to hate my friends. I don't want to hate my children. But even in that, I don't want to hate those people. So is Jesus really saying I should hate those people? Well, no, he says I should love them less than I love God. Because God in the Bible is the ultimate. He is the pinnacle of every single relationship. And that's the person that we want to spend most time with, isn't it? And this is what Jesus is saying. In order to spend most time with him and build that relationship with him, it's going to cost you things in this world. Because not everybody is going to love the same thing that you love. So Jesus challenges this. And so we had to think about this. Well, what things do we love in this world more than Jesus? Well, it depends on how old you are, doesn't it? If you are my child that's a 7-year-old, she loves TV, YouTube, food and toys more than she loves anybody else. She might say things differently, but I'm pretty confident that's the case. When you become a teenager, I know I may not look like one anymore, but you love friendships, social groups, making sure you fit in the crowd, your reputation, all of those things are significantly important to you. But Jesus is saying, no, all these things have got to change and I have got to become the most important. And that is going to cost, isn't it? Because we don't want to fracture relationships. We don't want to fracture any of those things. And so Jesus says, how are you going to love these things less than you love me? And so you've got to then work that out. With my wife, I had to work out what friendships were going to be more important. Am I going to go out with my mates or am I going to go out with my wife? Well, it was a no-brainer. She was prettier than my mates. I went out with my wife. And so the same when you get into relationship with God, when you start to build the picture of who he is, what it's like to be in a relationship with him, and what the benefits are of knowing him, it totally changes the way that you relate to everybody else. And he becomes that person that becomes on this pedestal that you move towards more than you move towards other people. And so the challenge for us is we've got to ask the question, what are we willing to give up in order to follow Jesus? So I can't answer that question for anybody else, but I've had to give things up. I've had to give up friendships, which has been rather costly because these have been people I've known all my life. Nobody wants to do that. I've even had to give up jobs because they're asking me to do things which does not fall in line with what God asks me to do. And that's some of the things that we have to consider when it comes to following Jesus. Are we willing to give those things up? There's a story with Jesus and a rich man. And the rich man runs up to Jesus and he says to him, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says to him, you should live to all the commands that are in the Old Testament, the 10 commandments, basically. He says, you've got to live up to all of these. And the man says, well, all of these I've kept since I was a young boy. And Jesus goes, okay, so sell all you have and come and follow me. What's the one thing he wasn't willing to give up? He wasn't willing to give up his wealth, his idol. That's which was most important to him, not God. So what is it that's more important than Jesus in your life? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up in order to follow him? But Jesus doesn't say this because it's null and void of any reward in the end. In fact, reward runs through the whole New Testament. And the reward ultimately that we get at the end is not a short life which we experience now, but an eternal life that comes with spending with the one that will give you all joy, all satisfaction, all encouragement, all love, all comfort, all peace. And that will be the ultimate reward that we'll get in heaven. So is that worth more than what we have now? The 70 years that will be gone in an instant? I think so. But I can answer that for you. You've got to answer it.